Okay, everybody, welcome back to the first show of our new podcast called Your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman. That's him, the older gentleman, to my right or left, depending where you're looking. And I'm Fred Carroll. How are you, Scott?
Fred, I'll tell you, what a year it's been. I think it's almost a year since we were on the air, and we only stepped off the air to let other people come in and get out of the way, and now they're all retired, and we can get back to business again.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when it was that I think we stepped away to reorganize the system, try to get more guests and stuff like that, and all that, and we were both getting busy in our lives, but then all of a sudden a year went by.
Yeah, and last May, my wife broke her femur. I think you know that, right, or no?
Yeah, you told me that.
So I was a full-time caregiver, and then we tried to look for a new hobby, and December, she broke her hip, her other leg.
Girl's falling apart.
So thank God I had my skills and my contacts in the caregiver world. And then a month ago, my daughter had a meniscus tear, so she had surgery. So now I have two patients, and I've got to hurry because I got to do my rounds very soon. I don't have a lot of free time.
Yeah.
So it's been a hell of a year, brother. By the time she'll be walking. She's on a walker now, got out of a wheelchair. My daughter is moving back to her place in 2 days, so she's done great. But by the time she's got all the weight on her leg, about first week in April, I'll have been a caregiver for almost 9 months of the last year.
Well, you signed up for this. You love it.
No, that I'm telling you, I went back, I checked, even in the vows, that wasn't there. So
how are you? How are you doing physically?
Well, it's been a year. It's funny. I still go to my meetings. I'm going to 7 a day now, virtually. My health is great. I mean, I'm knock on wood. I'm excited about that. Our business with the veterans continues to grow, and we're helping people. And I got some coaching calls this last week, like 3 of them, and I hadn't had any in months. So it's an interesting time, and I think coming back, changing our name's important. I think the conversations I'm having with people this year, just compared to when you and I were doing what we were doing 22, 23, it is amazing how much more fragile people have come and become with what's going on in the world.
Yeah, so, and aware to what's going on. There's an awareness, more of an awareness.
Oh yeah, aware. Yeah, I see that, and I think that people aren't hoping it's just going to go away now. They're trying to assimilate some sort of action of what they can do to help the people around them, whether it's their business, their family, their siblings, their children, their school, their community. And of course, I don't even want to talk about politics, but that's impacting people with. So how's your year been?
Well, my year's been chaotic. I had the new book come out, and that went over okay. Wasn't great. My sales weren't top notch or anything, but it's still available on Amazon there. And that's called When Your Ego Throws a Pity Party, Go Alone. You would have been very proud. I'll send you a copy eventually. But you would have been proud because I did all the things you've taught me of just telling the truth and tell your truth and all that stuff. So I was I call it an almost memoir. And I was very honest about my past life of being abused as a child, sexually abused. I was very honest what that did to me from a sexual standpoint as an adult, as I grew, how I viewed and treated sex and women and stuff, and then into some of the drug dabbling and feeling worthless, all that stuff, and feeling suicidal and having an ideation with death and stuff. All things that I feel I've far am past it now. I don't feel like I've still in that world. My head space is clear. So it was nice to write it. Not fun, because I was forced to revisit, especially the being molested as a child. And to revisit that it wasn't fun. There was no joy in it, to recall things that I had worked so hard to forget.
Did you experience, I don't want to ask the question. Did you experience a process while you're doing that where there was some giving yourself permission to forgive yourself and to feel better, not necessarily about the experience because you can't change that, but about being able to kind of vent it and talk about it and get it out there, and that you were less alone with it, and it didn't hurt as much by talking about it?
Yeah, and definitely our conversations with some of the guests we had on in our past shows helped teach me that I wasn't alone. It wasn't just me. And they went through far worse. So, but like I say, it's not an Olympic event. This isn't a competition of who's had a worse life, because my worst life may not affect you the same way as your worse. So I was never in competition with anybody. It was just hard to find the words without being an author anyway, a fiction author. It was hard to tell the truth without dramatizing it at first
Mm-hmm.
to make it more exciting, and stuff. And I did my best not to. I could have easily just thrown in some other things.
Well, that's always tough to do. We have a saying in recovery that you can't keep it if you don't give it away. So by putting it down, and I think you'll find that sooner or later, someone's going to grab the book and really react to it in a way that's pretty astonishing, and it'll resonate with them, and they'll be calling you and going, "Hey, I want to talk some more about this." You never know, because it's not like a map or a tourist map where it tells you which homes to go preview when you're in Beverly Hills. So
Right.
I think
So what do you think we should, since we're probably going to get a new crowd with this, which is welcome, some of our old timers will come back, but how do you want to best describe what our point here is? What do you want to solve or help solve, and what can you provide?
Well, I like the idea of, the concept of your crisis coach, meaning what's going on in your world. I mean, one of my favorite stories about this elderly woman who read an article about me and called me up. She says, "I have a neighbor who is really upsetting me. Is that something you can help with?" And I said, "Sure, let me see if I can help." Well, she told me this story, basically, that every time she took out her trash cans, he would take his out and harass her. And I said, "So what would you do?" She said, "I wouldn't say anything. And I'd go back in and he'd start emailing me. And then what would you do?" She said, "Well, I'd start responding to his emails." I said, "Well, why don't you just don't respond to his emails?" And she called me back 2 weeks later and she said, "It worked. I didn't respond back. I didn't feed into his nasty nature. And the week after, when I saw him at the trash cans, he apologized to me and said, I don't know what I did or why I did it, but I'm sorry." And just by not keeping the conversation going, she had a chance to kind of, reinvent the relationship, whether she wanted to or not. So, just whatever's on somebody's mind. I mean, clearly we can't be an expert at everything, but I think of us more as navigators than an expert. So if somebody and there's a lot of places you can't talk about a lot of things. And I think the fact that we can maybe have an open forum and whatever's on your mind, you bring it here, and we'll give you a platform to talk about it. What do you
Yeah,
think?
and I think we could, we still have the availability to provide. It doesn't always have to be on video. I could hide people's faces.
Yeah.
We could do a completely anonymous thing. You don't have to show your face just to be on the show. I could alter your voice. I could do all that stuff if we have to get you to speak about your problem and try to help you solve it, or at least guide you in the right path.
Yeah. The concept of let us let us try and help you so you can help others, and we can help you and we can help others.
Yeah,
So,
it's
I
very
like that.
sharing.
So it
Yeah, and
doesn't
it,
it's be, obviously I have my expertise, you've got yours, but I think part of our expertise is being good listeners and being able to give um, honest feedback,
yeah,
whatever that is defined as with the topic or the person or the situation.
yeah, and I think you have enough connections within that world of addiction and mental health and homelessness. There's so many things we're willing to go down just about every path to do with addiction, every path to do with, and there's some that we won't understand. Like, I don't think I could ever understand porn addiction, but it is a real problem in the world. And I'm willing to hear somebody's either solution or problem with it, and I will do my research to figure out where we go from there. But from a drug addiction and alcoholism, you could handle that. Um, I'm assuming you've been down that road before, maybe. How
Well,
long you been sober?
this November, all goes well, it'll be 40 years. So, we've been doing this a few years together. I when you started talking about porn, I was just thinking, I remember meeting this guy. I don't know. I think it was, I don't know what it was, maybe a podcast a couple years ago. He was a guest of somebody's, or he referred him to me. He had an avatar addiction. He was addicted to this avatar, and that was his, like his higher power. So, and there's a lot of compulsive obsessive behaviors out there, but there's also a lot of underlying behavioral health issues. Just I've heard a lot of people talk about sleep deprivation. Not being able to get a good night's sleep, things on their mind won't shut down. And there's experts out there that can help with that. People that are making decisions without really doing any research, or just helping guide people to get to a more positive outcome, or at least to a resource rich environment, or at least some suggestions for people that have a lot more knowledge than we do. I like the navigating idea. We'll help you navigate it, because what happens is, I think people get stuck. They get just stuck in the mud, and they don't know which way to go. And every time they get a foot out of the mud, they lose their balance and their foot goes back in the mud. Now they're facing a different direction without any new resources. So they're just stuck. So
Right, and
unstuck.
you do a lot with the homeless vets, and you're still doing that, correct?
I am, and I'm getting more calls lately just because the solutions really just for the homeless, it continues to get worse.
And
I
that
mean,
part of
everything I've done in my life, watching what's happened. There was just a piece this last week. Oregon, the most progressive state in the country, decriminalizing. Now they're recriminalizing. They just had a data point come up: 1,503% increase in overdoses over a year ago, and the whole state's in a panic now because they went the whole other direction, making it easy for people and not putting people in jail or prison for their crimes because they just felt like they were, And then I hear these new homeless facilities are trying to open in San Diego, and they're saying they're not going to test people. Well, if somebody has a substance use disorder, why would you not test them? And instead of making it punitive, give them consequences, but also give them incentives, meaning you come in clean. Hey, next level of housing, more job research, because you can't send people on jobs if they're still under the influence, and you can't refer them out to other resources if they can't navigate how to get there. So I just
right.
think that accountability, and I think that goes across the whole norms today, especially with mental health issue, and the suicide rate continues to grow. And I want to be a resource. That's what I just love doing. I just did this small little documentary. I'll tell you more about it in a week when some of the little pieces come out. But I was excited to be invited to be part of it. They first talked to me about addiction, and then they were looking for somebody who attempted suicide, and then they realized I had. So I got a dual role. Come down to a minute and a half, but still being part of something. They claim they have 158 million people that view their show annually. We'll
Why
see.
don't you give me the short version of your suicide attempt, just so people know what we're talking about here. Like, give me the short version. the Scott version.
Well, we used to get feedback that we depress people. Let's save it for the next show.
Yeah.
It's in my first book. It's actually, I think it's on my website too. But
Yeah, it is.
no, I'll save it.
What's your website?
I don't yourcrisiscoach.com. What I don't like to do is I don't like to tell the story more than once a week. It gets me depressed. But the short version, I was in New York. I had a week of blackouts, and I was going to take my own life on the 44th floor of a tall building in Manhattan. And through divine intervention, I didn't. So more details to follow. But I look at that benchmark of my life, and when people ask me why I give my phone number out, I said, well, if someone can't talk to you about what's going on and be helpful, they can't help you. So, I got a call here in half an hour, and it's with a family that has a young son who, thinks he knows everything. He knows everything, when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, you know everything. And today's world, there's no more room for, not a lot of room for error. And watching these cartels, how rich they've gotten with around opioids and fentanyl, it's just scary.
Where is it coming? Is it still coming in from mainly through Mexico?
Well, the cartel controls the distribution. They buy the precursors, the main ingredients from China, and then the cartel handles the distribution. I mean, they push it across the borders where they can, obviously. Not Texas, because they're busy with other things, but Arizona, California, and then of course all the southern coastal cities, they can drop it off on boats the same way they used to bring marijuana in from South America. Florida used to be a big part, and then of course Canada's got its open borders, but more importantly, they can put them on airplanes. There was an article yesterday that a crop of avocados packed by a perceived professional packer found cocaine in it. They opened up, they had the dog sniff them, and they opened it up, and there was cocaine in the avocados. I haven't read the article yet, but I can't believe it was an accident, which means somebody is putting cocaine, and I assume they're opening avocados and stuffing it where the
pit was.
Yeah. So, but cocaine's different because that just you got to grow it, crop it, cut it, and then package it and then ship it. Where fentanyl, you just send them a bunch of chemicals and you mix it in your garage. And none of that slowed down. It's continuing to grow, and so is the overdoses. So we know that the vulnerable populations, they haven't slowed down at all.
Yeah, so it's still mostly manufactured in China?
The precursors are, meaning the chemicals are there, and then the cartels are manufacturing it and distributing it. Now, whether China is actually making it and then selling it themselves, that doesn't seem to be what's going on, because it's easier just that puts more liability on the cartel.
Yeah,
because China, Mexico has a different way of doing business, and China has a different way of doing business. But that's the way it looks according to the criminal justice system, the DEA, the border patrol system, Homeland Security. That's what they're talking about. That the cartels are the main distributors, and they're making billions, just billions, and not slowing down. They don't care.
Yeah, it's still as rampant around here also on the East Coast. Just so people know, Scott's on the West Coast in San Diego area. I'm on the East Coast in the New Haven, Connecticut area, New York area, around there.
I would hope our viewers would know that from my warm, loving personality and easygoing style. But
yeah,
maybe
but
not.
Look at mine. Look at how calm I am.
Well, that's my point.
It's
I think
you're California with your cigar and stuff. You allowed to smoke around your wife?
No, I'm in my shed, buddy.
Yeah.
I got my 8 by 10 foot shed here, and my microphone and my monitor and my little light. That's it.
Does California tax that shed?
The shed? No, not this one, because it doesn't have running water.
Great. Great. You did
But
get a
they
lot of
do.
you did get a lot of rain, right?
Man, this city, this community, I mean, all along the West Coast, I mean, it's like 12 foot of snow up in Lake Tahoe, and Truckee was just buried. We've never seen weather like this. This much volume of water this short a time, we've never seen. So it's been pretty devastating, especially in areas where it never would have been on their radar to see their streets flooded and their homes flooded, because it's just, everything got wet, had no place to go, and it can't go back in the ocean. So yeah, it's been pretty brutal. Lost some lives and a lot of damage to property. And there's no real, most people don't have flood insurance. We have earthquake insurance if
Right.
you want to get it.
Well, how close are you to the ocean?
Probably about 2 miles as the crow flies, but we're also up on a mountain. So we're, I don't know, 1,000 feet above sea level, 800 feet above sea level. Not
But
much, but we're not.
I assume the people that live on the coast more do have flood insurance, right? Because they have to.
If they can get it. It's hard to get, because you can only, once you have a flood, it's like an earthquake, you can't buy it for 90 days or something. And
Right.
a lot of the major insurance companies have been canceling people who live in California because of the fires. So, it's kind of like what's going on in Texas now. By the time that they get done cleaning that up, getting fire insurance is going to be very difficult as well. So it makes it really,
Right.
really tough.
So moving forward into this venture, I assume we're going to do this every Monday or Tuesday. We'll get
Yeah.
a show in, we'll get a show out. I put a lot of feelers out for guests. Yesterday, I sent out a bunch of emails, and I've received 5 back already of people that are willing to come on. A lot of them are. One is a recovered porn addict who now helps people. One was helps children of adult alcoholics, adult children of alcoholics.
ACA is called. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's so, self-described as an expert in that. How are you because this is your field and stuff, how do you deal with, obviously there's differing opinions sometimes. Like the person might come on with a style. Are you more just to lay back and say, listen, if that style works for you, that's great, and you're just let bygones be bygones?
Yeah, we even do it in our treatment center here in San Diego. One size doesn't fit all. I just had my signature as an author on an article about psychedelics. I'll send it to you today. It just came out, and it talks about how some people are turning to LSD and mushrooms. I mean, Oregon was one of the first states to legalize it, and they were training people for $8,000. You can get trained, and you could bring people into a classroom, and you would get mushrooms that were, I assume, overseen by the government or licensed through the government, so they could regulate what you were giving your clients. And for $8,000, you could charge, I guess, some sort of a fee to administer these magic mushrooms to your patients. So, and you didn't have to be an MD or a psychologist or anything; you had to go through the training. But based on what's happening in Oregon, they may be changing that too. So, I'm a firm believer that, in medication-assisted treatment, harm reduction, methadone, I accept it all. Anything that I can do or we can do to help get people into some form of treatment, we should do. I mean, most traditional 12-step programs, a lot of treatment centers are 12-step based. They're abstinence based, meaning if you drink and you drug and you don't give one of those up, they're not going to let you in. My attitude is, if you get someone to sit in a seat and talk to others, there's a good chance they might get the message, not through osmosis, but through experience, and hear some of the things that could happen if they're not willing to take a look at alternatives. So,
And
I'm open.
the failure rate is still very high, correct? And for relapse?
Yeah, no matter what treatment center it is, no matter what drug it's for, according to the data, the science, if somebody just does one thing and then stops, there's a 95% chance they're going to relapse. It's kind of like diabetes. If you don't monitor your insulin level, you're going to have a problem. So you check yourself throughout the day, and you put insulin into your blood system.
So since we'll end this at about a half hour today, just to give people a little start to our adventure here with your Crisis Coach podcast. So, like I was saying, you're Scott H. Silverman, just so you don't forget. I'm Fred Carroll. I produced the show. You're the talent.
Yeah.
We're both incredibly good looking. We know that.
Yeah. Think of me as an informed contributor.
Informed contributor that
Yeah, or
signs on and signs off.
Subject matter expert coming to contribute.
Right. And sometimes you brag about the weather of San Diego. So we'll do less of that. I'll try to mute you quicker so people don't get mad. But there's so many things we could talk about. We've never had a show where we didn't have enough to talk about, unfortunately. We'd both love to end the ability to do this show. That means all the problems are solved. It's never going to happen. We're realistic about that. We're never going to solve the problems, but we both believe that talking about the problems is a good first step to solving the problem.
Agreed.
Did I say that correctly? Yeah, I said that correctly. Don't I sound so mature when I'm with you?
Yes, you do, and I appreciate that. I don't even know what that means.
I'm the mature one. I'm the mature one.
I turned 70 since I talked to you last.
70. How's it feel? Did you ever think you'd see 70?
The way I was going my life, if I lived to 30, I was happy. So I've gotten this 40-year, trajectory that I never thought I'd have. So I probably appreciate life differently, more so today than ever before. And I'm very grateful for everything I have.
Do you ever look back? Obviously, you're sitting there smoking, so maybe not. But as an ex-smoker, I think I'm on about 8 years now. I have a lot of regret thinking that all those years I did smoke, and I guess this would tie into whether you're a drinker, marijuana smoker, all those things. I feel like I've shortened my life because of all the years of smoking. But
I quit smoking cigarettes probably 32 years ago, and I have a cigar now and then, and I kind of think of it as I don't know, not as a reward as much as it is just something I enjoy, and I can do it quietly, and I can do it alone, and most people want me to do it quietly and do it alone. So it kind of works out, and it's not the healthiest thing in the world, but I just had my first in-person physical in 3 years, 6 months ago, and the doctor continues to laugh. She says, you've got the makeup of a 35-year-old. Your cholesterol is so righteous, and your heart rate is very, very consistent with the 35-year-old, and your blood pressure is as well. So, keep doing what you're doing and enjoy life.
Well, it's no secret. We've talked about this before, that you have a good wife. Without her feeding you and giving you all this, go to the doctor, it all matters.
Well, she got payback this year, I'll tell you.
Yeah, she's getting it. Well, that's good.
Driving her to PT, taking her here, giving her showers. I said, honey, we're supposed to do this in our golden years. We're not even in our sober years yet. So, but I was able to do that because I had my health and I could do it, and I could lift her and could move her around. And I'm the cook, thank goodness. So I cooked. I did all the stuff I was supposed to do. And, that's kind of like what a partnership's all about, is doing that.
Yeah. Was she able to continue to work from home?
Yeah, but when, in her business and real estate, if you can't show somebody a house, you have to rely on somebody else. But, she actually had a pretty good year last year, but she broke her hip in December. So here it is, March. So she won't be weight bearing until probably she won't be driving until mid to late April. I can take her around, which is fine. I do that, and I don't mind. Well, I piss and moan about it, but I do it because I know it's good for her, and we're not ready to retire. I'm excited about going into my next phase, and I figured I'll do what I'm doing for 10 more years at a minimum, and then make a decision then, unless something weird happens, and then I can do what I do for free. Like I win the lottery, then I wouldn't have to charge anybody, and I'm sure my demand will go way up when there's no longer a fee associated with it. But most people call me, they get a free 15-minute call anyway, and I don't want to sound glib, but generally in 15 minutes we can give I can give the average person 1 or 2 suggestions that they can get started on that afternoon, the next morning, to start moving in the right direction.
Well, tell people how they get a hold of you.
It's real easy. You just call me at 619-993-2738, 619-993-2738, or Google me, Scott H. Silverman, and text me or go through my website, email me, and put your question in your email, and I'll do what I can to get back to you within 24 hours, if not sooner.
And that's yourcrisiscoach.com?
Correct. Yourcrisiscoach.com.
So anybody could reach out to you. They could reach out to me, and I could get you in contact with Scott. That's something we'll offer anytime you see our podcast, whether it's the video or the audio. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll have Scott's number, Scott's connections. You could find Scott on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, and we'll give you enough opportunity to connect with both of us to help you with your problem, or with a problem it could be your friend, your husband, your daughter, your son, your mother. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be calling in for yourself. We could guide you.
If they're comfortable enough, Fred, once they get interviewed by you, you can bring them on the show and they can talk about their topic and try to help us help others.
Yeah. And there's opportunity for us to do this live at other times, but right now we're just building it slowly, building it stronger than it was before. And we just have to commit to it, and we'll find the guests. The guests are always there. Enough people, and we'll get some of them back. There's some that have already been on, and we'll see what happens. So that's going to be it, Scott. That's it for our first new episode of our second podcast adventure. And this is Your Crisis Coach podcast with Scott H. Silverman, and I am Fred Carroll. You want to say the closer, or you want me to say it?
You go ahead, brother.
Okay. If no one has told you they love you today, we love you, and we will talk to you again next week. Be good, everyone.
Take care.